Yo, and welcome back to the Banter Boys podcast. My name is Sanji, with me is Paul. How you doing, boy?
Doing good, how are you?
Not too bad, buddy. I'm so grateful that we were able to connect. I was a little worried that we weren't going to be able to complete the series, but you know what? Thanks to cricket, it's arguably maybe the best sport, even though this is a football podcast. But listen, the world of cricket brought us together, and I'm absolutely buzzing for that. How are you doing, Paul? How's your summer going so far?
My summer's fantastic. I've just got back from a week at the Olympics, so I couldn't possibly have had a better time. It was absolutely incredible, like a once-in-a-lifetime experience, truly. And I'm a teacher, so I've got 3 more weeks to sort of chill and relax, and looking forward to the football season starting.
Awesome. Which events did you go watch in particular?
So we saw. I took my son, and there was a big group of friends, and we saw hockey. We're big hockey fans. So we saw the hockey bronze medal match in the women's game, and then we saw 2 evenings of athletics, which was pretty good. Quite a lot of Team G medals, and then we saw the modern pentathlon, which is absolutely insane. It's changing for the next Olympics, and the horses are being taken out, sadly. But it was just incredible. It's just like absolute chaos, and no one really knows what's going on. But it was fantastic, and the French fans were amazing, and it was just a brilliant experience.
Amazing. I have a random question. If you had to pick one event or sport to represent your country in for the Olympics, what do you think you'd choose? Okay,
so do I have to work to reach that? Do I automatically inherit their physical abilities?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So if so, obviously decathlon, because you become a super athlete, or triathlon, because I'm not a particularly good swimmer. Okay. And that means automatically I'll become a very good swimmer. So one of those. I have thought about it.
That is a very fun way to look at it. Awesome.
And yourself?
Oh, that's a very good question. Let's go shot put, because I remember that's one thing that I used to try a lot when we had sports days growing up in high school and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like all the shot put guys seemed like they could eat whatever they want, just go to the gym all the time and just chuck a really heavy object. It seemed fairly simple, though I know none of these sports are simple, right? There's a lot of art, there's a lot of technique and skill to it. So yeah, I'll go with that one.
And cricket's in the next Olympics, so you've still got a chance, right?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of crazy actually. That sports like cricket are there, football, basketball. For some reason, sometimes I feel like it shouldn't be. It should just allow focus on javelin or shot put and stuff. Because I think about it, on an average day, if I'm come home from work and I'm sat down and there's let's say shot put on the telly, would I really want to sit down and watch that? I don't know. But all right, listeners, before we get started, I think what we'll do is a quick fan introduction. So tell us your name, your Twitter handle, the club that you're representing today, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so I'm Paul. I'm from South London. I now live in Oxford. My team is Fulham. I'm a primary school head teacher, so I've got no Twitter handle. But if you have some children between 4 and 11 years old and live in South Oxford, please get in touch. We'll have them.
I love that plug. All right, listeners. Welcome back to our final Inside Trax series episode. We're here to speak about everything Fulham. And this is a bit of a special episode because Paul, even though he plays fantasy football, he's never actually tried Fantrax, despite, getting a lot of questions and maybe a few nudges about, jumping across to the platform. So maybe, at the end of this conversation, we can probably, make him jump ship because, in fact, I think it was last season? Yeah, we had our Nottingham Forest rep, same situation as you, avid fantasy player, never tried Fantrax, was quite fascinated by it, and now he's a bit of a pro at it. So who knows?
But
right?
The question is, how did he do?
Oh, he came first in his league.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so I've got high hopes for you. So listeners, we'll try to stick to the format as much as possible, but just a reminder for those that are new to the series, general format for these episodes, we've got 3 main segments. So the first segment is a bit of a general discussion where we're going to talk about the impact of any sort of managerial change or coaching change. Then we'll look back at the previous season's performance and get Paul's idea on what his expectations are for the upcoming season. And then we talk about the old system that they ran last season versus the new season that he's expecting, as well as the expected formation and starting 11. And, you know, we'll look at the impact of any transfers that have happened as far back as last summer as well. And then obviously we're going to chat a bit of Fantrax. So we'll try to figure out, you know, the first pick from Fulham, the next 3 picks, which rounds we might suggest taking them in, at least one hidden gem and a trap asset as well. And for the advice segment, I think we'll see how we can try to introduce the game to Paul, because, you know, he doesn't have a lot of Fantrax experience. So, you know, things like chatting, draft pick trading, or budgeting fab is going to be a bit foreign. But you know what? I think we're going to have a great conversation regardless. So, let's get started. So, Paul, tell us, what's it like being a Fulham fan? You guys finished, if I recall, 13th last season. Scored 55 goals, conceded 61, finished on 47 points. Were you happy with that?
Yeah, we were. Well, I was. I think having been a bit of a yo-yo club for a while, when we go down to the Championship, like, as fans, it's thoroughly enjoyable. Like, we'd stormed the league. We won 7-0 3 times that season. And then we sort of wanted to ensure we had stability. So I think if someone had offered me, you know, 16th, you know, 17th last summer, I'd have bitten the hand off for it, especially with Mitrovic leaving, all of the uncertainty. You know, last summer, Paulina, he went and sat in Munich and was hoping for a transfer on transfer deadline day. And thank God it didn't happen. Yeah. And then we were pretty happy with what happened. There were times where it looked like we were flirting with the top 10, but realistically, a lot of it comes down to Marco Silva. And if you think about the players and the profile of player we have, it's players who didn't necessarily succeed elsewhere. And he's built this happy group of players, and they seem really together. Anything you see of them on social media or anything that the team releases, they look like they genuinely enjoy playing for the club. Last year was a huge success. We had some great wins. You know, we beat Arsenal, right? And they drew with us. Basically, we decided the title. Hey. We beat Spurs, we beat Man United, and we outplay Man United every time we play them. And we beat them last year for the first time in forever. We had a couple of, you know, big 4-0 wins as well. So it was a great season.
Yeah, I mean, you got to the semi-finals of the EFL Cup as well. We can't ignore that. And you must be, I guess, buzzing for the start of the season, given the first fixture is against Manchester United.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I remember, obviously, our first ever game in the Premier League was Man United. And, like, although it, you know, wasn't amazing, it sort of sent a message to who we were. But then I do remember, maybe it must have been, 10, 12 years ago, we played them again on the first game of the season, and we got absolutely hammered. It was like 5-1 or something, and we were 4-0 down at half time. And by all accounts, United, obviously they've got injury problems, but they're still a very good side, and they look pretty decent last weekend. So I think we'll give them a good go, and you never know, right? Like, we've played well every time we played them, and last game when we beat them, Paulinho was out then, so doesn't mean we can't do it, and then we'd be top of the league.
There you go. What a way to kickstart the season. All right, let's maybe look back at some of the transfers that happened as far as last summer window, right? Like you mentioned, the out of Mitrovic to Al Hilal. How did you feel when it first happened? Was there like a bit of fear, like, oh my God, we're going to struggle because he was such a talisman for you guys the season before?
Yeah, and he really was, right? He scored 43 goals. Yeah. That is unbelievable. Yeah. We were all worried. There was actually quite a lot of backlash from fans who thought, you know, he was going for the money and stuff, which he was, but he was open about that. Was I worried? Yeah. I just assumed we would spend that 50 million on a striker, and it didn't happen. And you
Yeah,
know, we're playing Raul Jimenez, which is fine, and he actually did well, but it was
yeah,
a big step down. But it just took a while, I think,
definitely. Yeah.
for the team to realise you can't play how you were playing for Mitrovic with a different striker, because for all of his strengths, he did have weaknesses. Like, he was slow, and we took two
Mm.
penalties last season and we scored them both. So I don't miss that.
Another out I want to touch on, Ivan Cavallero. A bit of a tricky, pacey winger. But he went off to Lille. Why do you think things didn't work out in the end for him?
Just didn't. I think he was a big favourite of Parker, and with the new manager and the new system, he just we had better options. He was like a utility player who was never quite good enough for anything. And for the fans, it was very strange because the year we were in the Premier League with Parker, he wasn't playing Mitrovic and he's playing Cavallero up front. And the man's a wide player. It just didn't make sense. And that sort of negative vibe hung around a little bit. It wasn't a real loss.
Fair enough. All right, let's talk about some ins from that summer. So we touched on Raul Jimenez coming in from Wolves. That was always going to be a tricky transfer, right? Given his serious head injury a couple of seasons ago, he's never been the same.
No, he's never been the same. And I think most fans expected him to be back up when he came, and a big player would come in. But he played really well. Like, he's not the same player, but how could he be? But he... You know, he scored goals, he made the runs he needed to make, and he was a vital part of the period where tides changed. October, I think it was, we lost quite a few games in a row. He came in and he actually did it. He scored a couple of goals and things started to change, and it was a big turning point in our season. So he did really well. I was happy with him. I'm glad he's still around.
Yeah, definitely. All right, another name, Calvin Bassey, coming in from Ajax. How did you rate his debut season?
Yeah, I'm really positive. I think he really grew into the team, and I would say right now he is our best centre-back. He's been fantastic. I think he'll have a big season again. I really do. I think he was really, really good. He just looks so confident, so comfortable, like he used to be at Rangers and stuff before. I think most fans are pretty happy with him. And at the moment, it looks like it'll be Bassey and Diop, but I think we would all say that Bassey is the stronger one.
Okay, lovely. Yeah, I believe he's Nigerian and went to the finals of the AFCON Cup as well, right? With his country.
Yeah, sounds about right.
All right. So another popular name that's flying around, free agency transfer, Adama Traore. Bust out the baby oil.
Well, 100%. And I know one of your things is like who could be the dark horse for the season. And for me, it is him. Last year, Adama clearly had the injury problems he's always had, right? If you get the man fit and you get him firing, you just unleash him and he goes. And we saw glimpses of it at the end of the season. There were moments where he picked up the ball and he just ran and ran and ran. And he was phenomenal. And it looks like in pre-season, at least from the last game, that he's fit. And Marco loves him. And it seems that we don't know really until Friday. And maybe things will be slightly different against a stronger team like United. But I imagine Adama will play a lot more this year as long as he stays fit. And he is the same player that people loved for years. He's not going to give you 90 minutes running up and down that side, and he's not going to track back. But well, maybe he will, but he's not going to track back like Iwobi will, for example. But he is going to go and go and go, and I think he'll make a huge impact. He offers something completely different because defenders do not know how to cope with someone who just goes at you again and again and again. It's his speed, but it's his strength as well. Yeah, he's absolutely fantastic. He looked great on the weekend, and he looks like he's built a connection with the others, like Iwobi on the other side. So, yeah, really positive. Like glimpses last year, but I'm expecting a lot more this year.
Yeah, he's an absolute dribble merchant. It's crazy. I remember when he first talked about, how massive he was. He's like, no, I don't lift weights. I just do body weight workouts. I'm like, come on, bro. Come on. Yeah, honestly, if he starts and he gets minutes, he's an absolute points machine for Fantrax. But okay, let's move forward. Another name to touch on, Timothy Castagne, coming in from Leicester City. I thought he did quite okay.
Fantastic. I thought he did really well. We had Tete was in the position before, and Tete has been fantastic for the last few seasons. As a one-on-one defender, he's the best there is. You won't get past him. But what Castagne offered was different. Like he carries the ball forward better. His end product at the other end of the pitch was much better. He looked like the Castagna from Leicester when they flew in the Premier League that time.
Yeah.
But he was fantastic. But it's interesting because if Adama is going to play, you imagine he's going to play with Tete, and that is what they did in the last preseason game. Whereas if it's someone who might come back as well, it will be Castagna. So as a fan, I think we all assumed it was Castagna's place to lose now, right? He played basically every week with Tete for the last 3-4 months of the season. But that was meant to be a full team put out last Saturday, and Tete was playing with Adama. So maybe it'll be a bit more balanced and a bit more adapting to the opposition. So as much as I would have said he was a lock, I would still wait a couple of weeks and see what happens with the Adama situation, because playing both of them is very attacking. Tete is a much better defender than Castagna, but Castagna is obviously significantly better going forward.
So it's sounding like a horses for courses sort of situation.
And luckily we're in a position where we kind of have that a bit more now. Like we have higher levels of quality further up the pitch. Whereas before we had, fantastic players who've left us, like Bobby Reid has left us. And we all love Bobby Reid. The man does a job. He can play right back and score 7 goals and be your top scorer. And Leicester have got a good player coming to them. And as a fan, he was great and, loved the club and seemed such a positive guy and just did a job all the time. He is a loss, but he was never going to start. If you look at the players we got starting, they are improvements on that.
Yeah, Bobby was like the ultimate utility man.
Big time. And he'll do the same for Leicester. I'm surprised he's gone, but maybe he sees more opportunities to start there.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, another name, Alex Iwobi. To me, this was a bit of a surprise transfer from Everton, but I think we're all aware of his ability on the pitch. Creates lots of chances for players around him. You excited for second season, Iwobi?
Yeah, big time. Iwobi was fantastic. I wouldn't be surprised, we sit here, May next season, we'll talk about what an impact he's had. And he is that perfect profile of Marco Silva player, someone who obviously has class, obviously has ability, didn't quite make it at the top club and is here with us. I think he's going to start pretty much every game. I think because he can play in a couple of different roles, I'm really impressed by him because he offers just that little bit more creativity and he's calm. Like he takes his time. He has vision. The ball he played on Saturday over the top to Adama was magnificent. That vision and that awareness is there already. I think he's going to have a great season, and he's someone in fantasy circles, absolutely, and especially in a thing where it's not just about assists. He creates opportunities, and Fulham do miss a fair few, but he will be there and he will create them.
Okay. Great. So there are 2 other names that I'm not that familiar with. I don't know if you can touch on or if they're going to be relevant. One is Chris Donnell. He came in from Perth Glory. And the other one was Stephen Bender that came in from Swansea City.
Can I say no?
Yeah, you're allowed to say no.
I can't see them getting minutes. Is this from last year, yeah? No, don't know him.
Okay. No worries at all. So in terms of last season's winter window, I think there's really only 2 names that kind of stand out to me. One of them was a loan out of Carlos Vinicius to Galatasaray. I don't know. I thought he was an okay second striker. Maybe just lacked opportunity, like minutes, starts, that sort of stuff. I feel like when relied upon or called upon, he did have a bit of a purple patch for you guys as well. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think he had his chance. He had his opportunities. And ultimately, probably the step up was too much for him. And he just wasn't, maybe we were the wrong team for him, but it wasn't right. And it was time to go. And it shows no one is there snapping our hands off to take him. It just wasn't quite good enough. And to be honest, none of us thought Muniz was going to be particularly good. Like we didn't. And he just jumped above him. And Vinicius had the chances first. And he just didn't do anything with them. And some of the misses, there were times when I watched him play and I just thought, I'll never see him in this shirt again, please. So, he's no loss to me.
Yeah. I think another player that is no loss to you guys was one that came in on loan from Chelsea, Armando Broja, which was a weird transfer given the little clause in terms of money appearances. Can you touch on that a bit?
Yeah, it was very strange. But for me, it felt almost like there was no risk there. Because if we were going to play him, he was going to it would be playing well and he might be scoring goals. And the only reason not to play him would be if we had a striker who was firing. And it was just a bit of bad luck for him that all of a sudden Rodrigo Muniz became, R19. Yeah, he became, the star striker in the league for a very brief period, and they overlapped.
Yeah.
And would I, if anyone had said, okay, Muniz scores 10 goals, but you have to give Chelsea whatever 5-6 million, good, take the money. Like the goals, they're worth every single penny. So I felt bad for him because he didn't really get his chance. He might have had an impact, but we just didn't need it.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. All right, so moving to the current window. So let's talk about the outs first.
Don't say it.
Tim Ream. Tim Ream is the name I'm going to start with. Old man Tim. He was a bit of a servant for you guys at centre back.
Absolute legend. Absolutely fantastic player. And it was so good to see that this time when we came back up to the Premier League, he did it. Like he did it. He could keep up with the pace. I remember that first game against Arsenal, the time we came up a couple of years ago, and he just looked shot and William tore him to pieces and it did not look great. And we were all worried for him because we love him. He was Player of the Year a couple of years ago. And he just showed the vision, the intelligence that comes with being that player for that many years. And I really hope that he shows enough in Charlotte, I think he's gone to, that he gets a place in that World Cup squad for the US, because that's the dream, right? At home. And speaking, reading his interviews, it seems it was a family decision. He's got a young family. He knows where the future lies for his family. And if that man doesn't end up as a manager, he just will, 100%. So I wouldn't be surprised in 10 years if we saw him out here, like, coaching the side. He's a fantastic player and seems like a genuinely good man. So he is a real loss, but he goes with everyone having great memories of him.
Awesome. Love to hear that. Okay, another name, Tosin Adarabioyo. A bit of another surprise move out of the club, but I think, was it just the relationship got sour between him and the manager?
I think Adarabioyo had always sort of wanted to play at a higher level. So when he left City, he obviously saw us as a stepping stone. And he was good, but he's not that good. Like, is he going to play at Chelsea? No. Like, he's not. Like, it's a shame he decided not to stay because he was obviously playing well at the end of the season. And the man looks good. He looks good in our kits. When you see the photos of him in all of the old shirts, like, he's got style. And he had moments, but I think he ultimately sees himself playing Champions League football, and that is something we just can't offer. And but then he was offered transfer to Monaco last year. That's Champions League football. And I think he turned it down because he sees himself at a top four club, which I don't think Chelsea will be next year, but they're a big team who will get back up there.
Yeah.
But not if he's playing centre half, you'd imagine.
That's quite worrying for Chelsea fans because he seems to be probably the best centre back there, which is very concerning.
And he is fine. He is good, but I don't think he's as good as Chalobah. And he's getting shipped off.
Oh, 100% agreed.
That's absolutely
wild. The Chalobah
wild.
thing is just, it was absolutely insulting to the player. The fact that they didn't keep him. Yeah. Agreed. All right. Another name. I was going to talk about Terence Kongolo, but I think I'm going to just rip the Band-Aid off, Paul. Okay. The name that you didn't want to talk about. Big loss. Big loss. João Palhinha to Bayern Munich.
So it is a big loss. Like, as a Fulham fan, and I'm sure most would agree, he has been sensational. Within minutes of him playing for the club, we were like, oh my God, what have we got? Why is this man playing for Fulham? And I think the last time we had that was when we had Dembele, the one who went to Spurs. He was fantastic. And it was so obviously he was better than everyone else. And then obviously when we had Sahar, we were all like, oh my God, what have we got? But Palhinha, I wouldn't be surprised if you're asking for a Fulham Premier League 11, it'd be, first name on the team sheet. I genuinely believe, people love Blamim Rodri, but I think he's the best holding midfield player in the league. If Bayern Munich had him last summer, they'd have won the league. Yep. They'd have won the Champions League. Of course they would have. The man is unbelievable. Like, and I'm so happy for him in many ways, right? I'm so glad we got him for another year, because if we'd have lost him and Mitrovic in the same summer, it could have all gone horribly, horribly wrong. But he gave us 2 years at his absolute prime level of footballer. And in fairness to Marcus Silva, he has given that man a platform to show. And he came back in January. He was hoping for it. We all thought, oh, he's going to hope for a move. He came back, not 1 ounce of complaint from the man. He just plays his heart every single week. And I tell you what, the yellow card stuff, I've just got, is so unlucky. He's just a victim of his name. Some of them, unbelievable. He got a booking for taking his shirt off, or no, jumping into the crowd a couple of years ago. Happens all the time. He was the only player who got booked for that all season. It's an absolute disgrace. But Palhinha, the loss for the team is just unimaginable. Imagine taking the star player out of every single side. And it's worse than that, because who could you actually replace him with? There is no one. Silva said today in his interviews, because that is a huge gaping hole, right, in the team. And he said, are you going to replace him? And he said, that is the number one position we need to sign. And he said that today. And obviously, the way Fulham's transfers work are weird, because I don't know if you know, like, Tony Khan and how it works. And so he's our director of football, but it's his...
Yeah, I mean, feel free to touch on it, definitely.
It's his third job, basically. So he runs AEW Wrestling, where he writes the scripts, and that is his baby. That is the thing he loves. He is whatever the same as director of football is for the Jacksonville Jaguars, the NFL side. And then he's arranging and dealing with transfers at our club. And I imagine we're the only club, probably in the top 2 divisions, who has someone doing such an important role, where it's so widespread. And he loves it. He loves to leave it to the last minute and do some deadline day deals, which sometimes works out well. But at the same time, we're playing on Friday. If you get players in early, you get training, you get it to work out. Losing Palhinha, it is everything. But good for him, He's going to play Champions League football for one of the best teams in the world, and he gets to show what he can do. And no one will see him leave with even like one teeny bit of animosity towards him. He's been an absolute legend. And my son is 7, so his Fulham memories are Mitrovic bagging in 43 goals, and Palhinha just like, you look up and we've won the ball back, and it's like, Palhinha, of course it is. Of course it is. So huge boots to feel. It feels a bit like when you take Kante out of a side, right? And you've got that sort of balance of, we've lost the 6, but we've lost the 6 who can also do a bit of the 8 stuff, carrying it forward, and does two 6 jobs. And how do you replace that? Well, you can't. You just have to try and hope that everyone else can give a bit more synergy and sort it all out.
Yeah, let's hope it works out for you guys moving forward. So, looking at then the transfers in, the first name I'm going to touch on, Jorge Cuenca, coming in from Villarreal.
So I don't know too much about him, but listening to the interviews and stuff, especially what Silva said today, was that he does expect that he'll play a big part this year. Now, he's not someone who's going to step straight in, and at the moment it's Bassi and Diop, but you imagine that Diop, that Bassi, I guess he's the backup for, because it looks like we're still looking for another person to potentially be a right-sided support or centre-back to not replace Diop, challenge Diop for the position.
Yeah.
But Cuenca, I don't know too much about him, but by all accounts, he seems like a decent squad player, and we haven't broken the bank on it, but we'll see if he ends up stepping in. Okay,
awesome. So 2 more names to talk about. I'll touch on back to the club, Ryan Sessegnon. Is it going to be a similar sort of profile to what we saw last time, where he was banging in goals for you, or you think maybe he's going to play in a defensive role?
I think he will do a bit of both. So he is not going to come and start for this team. Like, he's just not. So losing Willian means that there's a space up top for him to come and offer that squad rotation on the left. And then also Robinson is going to play every single minute of every single game. He missed 1 game last year, and that's because he wasn't available. Like, Sessegnon is that backup, because we don't have that. I would see him doing a bit of both. It's a free transfer, and he understands the club, he understands the environment, so there's no real gamble there or risk there. And for us, it's a huge sentimental thing, because the kid, that year, he was special. Like, he was special.
Yeah.
But he's not the fastest. He's not the most skillful. He had, I don't really know how to describe it, but that year, a lot of his goals were just right place at the right time. A bit like Thomas Muller.
Yeah.
He's not got much, but he's got everything. And you would look up, and all of a sudden, Sessegnon will score again.
Yeah.
I love Ryan Sessegnon with an absolute passion. And my washing machine, so I can't remember who we were playing. he was being priced up as a defender in every betting website for weeks and weeks and weeks. And he wasn't. He was playing attacking midfield on the left.
Yeah.
So I went before one game. And I said, he's playing attacking midfield left. But I look and see what odds it is for him to score. And it was quite good. It was like 7-1 or something. He'd scored loads of goals. It was madness.
Yeah.
So I put a little bit of money on, and he scored within 5 minutes. So I quickly put money on for him to score a hat-trick. He scored a hat-trick. I bought a washing machine, and the washing machine is still running good today. So Sessignon, my wife said, Sessignon's back. Well, maybe we'll get a new oven this year. So hopefully it'll come good, and it isn't just a sentimental thing. But he's a good squad player to have around, right? And good for him. He needs game time. So I'm happy to have him back. And he's so young.
Yeah. That is such a great story. Oh my god. Okay, final name to touch on. Emile Smith-Rowe coming in from Arsenal. I'm actually very excited to see what he can do this season.
I think we all are. He obviously is a class player, and he really fits that profile of someone who looked amazing, was playing amazing, and just seemed to get himself squeezed out of the team by players who are just slightly higher quality.
Yeah.
And he's going to come in, and he is going to be the star, right? And also the people around him, Iwobi is going to be, I assume they're mates, right? They're
exactly. Played at Arsenal together, sort of thing,
And Iwobi will lift his game if he knows he's got Smith-Rowe there. Pereira's going to have to lift his game because they're fighting for that 10, right? And whether Smith-Rowe starts on the left or starts centrally, I think he's going to offer so much. He carries the ball well. He's already scored twice in pre-season. I think from what it looks like is he's playing quite high up. Like he's playing really quite high up with Muniz. We're really excited. I know it's like a record transfer, but I think it's kind of like also that profile, which is a bit higher than the players we've had, right? I can't think of a player, all right, he didn't get the chances he should have last year, but the last signing from another big club who comes in and has the potential to turn this into his team, built around him.
Yeah.
We're all very excited. I'm always very wary in fantasy things of bringing in players straight away who have signed for a new team, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't know how they'll gel and don't know how they'll blend. But he looks good in pre-season and he is going to play. Like, you don't play him in these pre-season games if he's not going to start. You don't spend that much money if he's not going to start. And he's, on paper, better than players we've got. So why won't it all go through him? I'm really excited by it. And I'm glad he came because I thought he might not want to make the move across because he might have seen it as a step down. But they've obviously convinced him that it's just a chance to build yourself back up and show them all, that we stopped Arsenal winning the league last year. So, he come over, see the better team.
Love that. So can you touch on the system that you guys played with last season and then what you're expecting in terms of, the formation for the upcoming season, the starting 11? So
I guess it was, sometimes it looked like a 4-1-4-1, but it was probably a 4-2-3-1 on paper. And it was Leno, and it will still be Leno, Robinson, two centre-backs, which rotated a fair bit, and then Castagna was set in by the end of the year. In front, when not suspended, it was Palhinha, and then either Lukic or Harrison Reed, depended on opposition, and then Kearney started coming in later in the season. And then we had Willian, we had Iwobi, we had Pereira, we had sort of three from that mix, with ultimately Muniz up top. And it is very much built on play through Pereira or later play through Iwobi. And it was look for them, go to them, or if William was available, he would take people on. So he was the dribbly one who tried to go past you. Iwobi slowed it down a little bit, found those gaps and those pockets, and they tried to run on beyond Muniz when he came in. And Muniz, like, the man banked in some goals, but there's still massive question marks, right?
Yeah.
He came from nowhere. He scored a lot of goals in a small period of time. That's all he's got to show for it. But his hold-up play is good. And
he's a big guy.
And he does not stop.
Yeah.
And having Iwobi with him, who was drifting closer at times, helped a lot. And it took a long time to change from the old swing him into Mitrovic to jump on up against your right back and head it in. But it kind of worked, and we had a pattern. And the fullbacks do push on a lot. When it was Castagna and Robinson, they were both bombing forward a lot and trying to beat a man, Robinson especially. And Castagna at the end, and Castagna's output's very, very good at the end. And I'm still a bit... If Robinson could cross the ball as well as he can take men on, he would be playing for Real Madrid, right? He's a supreme athlete who can beat anyone. his end product just isn't quite there. And the changes now, it's still uncertain, like what it will look like, because like key players have gone. Willian's gone. He was a starter.
Yeah.
And Paulinho's gone. He was a starter.
Yeah.
Tosin started half the time and he's gone.
Yeah.
But I see like Leno is a lock. Leno is quality. He offers something. Robinson will play every single minute as long as he's fit. To be honest, I'm surprised no bids have come in for him, because
from like Liverpool. I mean, a lot of people like to talk, gossip paper and stuff like that. But that was basically like, oh, he'd be a decent fit for Liverpool sort of thing, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. But he hasn't, so that's good news.
Yeah.
I see Bassi will play, and I think we'll start with Bassi and Diop. But there's a lot of rumours flying around about bidding. We put in a bid in for Joachim Andersen, who played for us last season when we were up, and he was very good. He was solid for us. I don't think they'll be accepting 20 million, and I think a lot of it depends on what happens with Gay and Newcastle and all these links, and it might just be something pushed out there for him to get a new contract. But we're also linked to the Villa centre half, so it's about. I think the key is to get one of those in to offer pressure on that spot, and then again on the other side, I thought it was going to be Castagna. But I'm not certain now. I'm not 100%. I think Tete might come back in if we end up with Adama, because then Robinson will continue to bomb on and on and on.
Yeah.
And then if it's Tete, he will bomb a bit, but not as much, because Adama can't be trusted, whereas Castagna will bomb on if it's him. But we're looking for, when you look at a player like Anderson, if he's going to come in, we're looking for a ball-playing centre-half, because that's what Tosin is. Tosin carried the ball out. He played the balls. And these two don't really. Diop does, but he has his moments where we're all a little bit worried, because every mistake he makes, which isn't that many, always seems to lead to a goal. And that just sticks in fans' heads. And then sat in front, I imagine it'll be about the same. It looks like Lukic at the moment is going to fill the hole that Paulinho was.
Okay.
Now, the game we played on Saturday, it was Lukic and Pereira sat there, and Pereira was playing as an 8 and Lukic was the 6. I just don't know. Like, Pereira is not that. That is not his role. Yeah. He played it back in Brazil, it seems, but it's not what he did for us last year. And his key strength is that high line press. He would press every centre half every single time, and it just helped us out so much. So it's going to be a real interesting situation to see what Silva does and how he fits those players in. But we could well see on Friday Lukic and Reed sat there, because that was successful when we played Man United last time. Yeah. And then you'd imagine Iwobi, Smith Rowe, and then it comes down to, is he going to do it? Is he going to play Adama Traore? And I'm not sure he is at Old Trafford starting, because it's a team who expect to dominate the ball against us. Yeah. But I think against weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, we've got an easy run of fixtures at the beginning of the season. Yeah. I think we'll see so much Traore bursting down that wing for 60 minutes. I think a lot will be that side, because if it's not Adama, it's probably Harry Wilson, unless you're making Iwobi go over there so that one of Smith Rowe or Pereira can be on the left. Yeah. It kind of like, how do you fit Pereira, Iwobi, Smith Rowe into those slots, unless one of them sits back and plays as an 8, which Iwobi did occasionally last year. So it's very, very interesting to see how it develops, especially with transfer window still open. And then I see Rodrigo Muniz. They've given him the number 9 shirt. They obviously believe in him. They've more faith than I do. But he's up there, and he will score goals, because we will create chances. My biggest worry is, I don't know how the defenders are going to adapt losing that screen, because they obviously are the same players, had the same quality. But every opposition, we haven't played a competitive game, really, where Paulinho is not there at the beginning of the season. Teams are going to notice that, and they're going to know that we're going to have a gap there where it used to be. Lukic is good, but Lukic isn't a natural 6. He wants to be the 8. He wants to go forward and carry, and he played best for us when he was doing that. That player we get to replace Paulinho is key. And the links are weird. Like, we're linked to Andre in Brazil. We have been for about 2 years, so I'm not sure that's going to happen. And then there's lots of links from McTominay, but he's not that player either. Like, he's not going to sit there and win the ball, so I don't know. Maybe it'll be... Well, I didn't really know Paulinho when he came in, so maybe it'll just be someone... pretty much our whole team speaks Portuguese and is Portuguese or Brazilian, so it probably is going to be someone from that speaking world who comes in. I hope someone comes in to fill that gap. Otherwise, it looks like we're trying to make up one player, but are losing some of the qualities of others. Because if Pereira is held back, yes, he's really fit. Yes, he can go box to box. Yes, he's fast. But we lose some of his creative output. We lose that high line press. And the same for Lukic a bit. So I'm not really sure what we're going to see. I hope we see some Adama Traore fire. But I think we will concede more goals this year, but I think we'll score more goals.
Okay. So then I guess you kind of did touch on the new season's expectations. What about in terms of a table finish? What are you hoping for?
Hoping for first place, right?
Yeah, obviously.
When I think it's difficult because you look at the Premier League, and I know it's like a top 4 or top 6, but really there's 8 teams who I cannot see us finishing above, right? And I'm including Chelsea in there, even though I think they're going to have a bad season. But one of those, we're not going to finish above City. We're not going to finish above United. We're not going to finish above Arsenal, Chelsea, Newcastle, Villa, Tottenham. These teams have got so much money now that the gap is vast. And then there's this group of others. So if you go on any fan predictors, you have all those teams whose fans say they'll finish 4th, and Man City and Arsenal say first. Then you have the next 10 teams in the league who all say, we're going to finish 10th, we're going to finish 11th. Because ultimately, there's 5 teams fighting for 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. I would put us in the same position as maybe West Ham and Brighton are slightly better than us at the moment. But we're the same as Palace, we're the same as Wolves, we're the same as teams like that who are all going to finish somewhere between, if things go amazing, 8th, 9th. If things don't go too well, 15th. So a cup run maybe if we're lucky. It's just consolidation, I guess. Hopefully beat some big teams, have some moments, bring some joy to us. Let's say optimistically 11th.
Okay.
But
all right.
But it could be slightly worse. But I don't think we'll be dragged into any relegation battle. I think there are teams significantly worse than ours. I see Leicester getting a points penalty, so I see them dropping very far down. And Southampton, look, no thank you. If any of you are thinking about any investment in a Southampton defender, I would book yourself in for some serious help and support, because they are going to let in a lot of goals.
Yeah, I mean, our Southampton rep Jacob, he was basically, that was his summary point, is just maybe look elsewhere for assets that you want to draft, maybe not Southampton. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how everything kind of unfolds. All right, is there anything else you wanted to touch on from this segment before we move on to the next one? No. I hope it will be a good, exciting season, right? Can't ask for more than that. Yeah. Definitely. All right. So now let's talk about some Fantrax assets. So I remember when I sent you the entire pitch of this is what we play. This is kind of, how the game works. You were very spot on with your predictions about, Anthony Robinson being a top player, João Palhinha being a top player, right? So I think we should be able to, give some good suggestions to our listeners. So let's start with the first pick from Fulham. Who have you got?
Robinson.
Okay.
He will play every game. He's not going to be your high ceiling player, but he is going to play every game. He's going to carry that ball forward. He's going to beat players. I think he has the most interceptions in the league. He gets that ball, he takes men on, he comes back, he wins tackles, he creates chances. He probably will never score a goal in his life, but he gets into those positions and creates those opportunities. And he plays, and he rarely gets substituted. And that is key, right? If you play every single minute of every single game and you carry that forward time and time again, he doesn't seem to have big injury problems. Yeah, Robinson for me, it's so funny because he was a player who 2 or 3 years ago, I think fans didn't think he was good enough. And he's really showed last year. He was player of the season last year for us in a team with Palhinha. And it's if you'd have told me a year before that I would have been also voting for him for player of the season, I would have thought madness. But he's really, really proved us all wrong. Fantastic. He would be someone genuinely worth considering in a draft. Yeah. No matter he plays for Fulham, but he is good. He is quality.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, no goals, but I think 6 or 7 assists from last season. And if you look at the current pool of players on the Fantrax platform, he is both the top scorer and the best points per game scorer as well. So it's very interesting that he's not currently the top asset that managers are drafting, just based on like the average draft position. And I know it's not an accurate reflection of how managers typically draft. It's just like, across all leagues, across the entire community sort of thing. So yeah, that's very interesting. All right. In terms of your next 3 picks, who have you got?
Do you want them one by one, or can I go as a?
Yeah. Let's go one by one.
Ooh, so I think I would go Iwobi next.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think the next 3 they're all like the same 3 attackers who I think will be our keeper. Iwobi, for me, I see him starting a lot of games. The impact he had, he became a player we'd look to for creativity. I don't see his place under threat as much as I do. If there's going to be rotation between Smith Rowe and Pereira, it will be there. I think Iwobi, he beats players, he creates chances, he shoots a lot. Yeah. And for how many games he played, I felt he scored a fair few goals and he really got in there and created chances. So Iwobi is someone who I would probably consider as the next person.
All right, awesome. Who have you got next?
I would say probably Smith Rowe, just because there's that excitement there. He really should be our creative linchpin. Like he should. Yeah. I feel he is an upgrade on Andreas Pereira, right? And it looks from pre-season he is playing incredibly high up, and he is right up close to Muniz. And so, when that ball falls, you expect him to be there. And I don't know. Possibly he's going to take over some of the set piece duties. You don't really know. Pereira's have been good or potentially look good. He's good at hitting the crossbar. So maybe it'll be shared around a little bit. But he's exciting, right? He dribbles, he creates opportunities, and he scored 2 goals in 2 games in pre-season. So, you never know. And then the next one is Pereira, because he is that player and was that player last year for us. And there's a question mark about penalties, right? Look, the only penalties we had last year were Willian, and he's not here, and he scored them both, and they're both in one game. Yeah. The year before, it was Mitrovic who missed more penalties than he missed a lot of penalties.
He did.
But a couple of times Pereira did take them that season when he wasn't there. So maybe it'll be Pereira. But you give Rodrigo Muniz the number 9 shirt. He's your star striker. You're trusting and you've got faith in him. You imagine if he wants penalties, he's getting them. But then at the same time, we only won 2 last year, so it's not that big a loss. But then with Adama Traore banging in, you never know.
You never know.
But Andreas Pereira does create chances. He does carry the ball, and he does create a lot of opportunities, and he is still a go-to player. And his set pieces are good. Like, his corners are good, his free kicks are good. I know he never scores them, but he must have the record for most crossbars on free kicks in the Premier League history. But one day, one will fly in. Maybe it's Friday, it will fly in that top corner, and I'll be thinking, Pereira. But he is still a quality player. I'm just a little bit worried that if he ends up dropping back and playing a bit deeper until we sign that replacement, it will reduce some of the talent he has, and means that he's actually doing a job rather than expressing himself. But he might end up playing in the 10 and Smith Rowe pushed wide, and then but he's still going to play a lot of minutes. But those 3. Yeah. So Robinson, Gap. Yeah. Then the 3 attackers.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, just kind of alluding to some of the numbers from last season of both Andreas Pereira and Iwobi. So given the current pool of players that are showing up on Fantrax, Pereira had 84 key passes, Iwobi had 53 key passes, right? First and second in terms of creativity. And in terms of goals and assists, Pereira had 3 goals, 9 assists, Iwobi 5 goals, 2 assists. So it's exactly like you said, right? Iwobi does get shots off. He is more of a goal scorer than Andreas, and Andreas is just, absolutely weapon. Like, he is an absolute weapon with his delivery, right? So yeah, it all checks out. Awesome. Have you got a hidden gem up your sleeve?
Only Adama Traore, right? Only because he is the one, right? But he won't be hidden for long if he starts starting. Then because he wasn't starting last year. Like he played, maybe started 1 game. He played a lot off the bench for 10-minute cameos. So he is still a hidden gem. I know people know him because he's Adama Traore, but if all of a sudden he starts, people won't have snapped him up in their draft because you don't think he's going to start, right? And I don't think he's going to start on Friday, but he will start against the weaker sides. He will, and he's going to run an absolute riot because the impact he has is actually phenomenal. Only him really, because the others, I'm just not sure if people are who's actually gonna play and have those game time. So we'll see. Yeah, but Adama,
All right, awesome. And now, finally, do you have a possible trap asset that you think managers are be a bit cautious on?
The thing about Fulham is, when you are talking about teams like Liverpool or Arsenal, that situation becomes obviously much more of a thing. But the people who are trapped, people just probably won't have got them, right? Because who's signing?
You think so, right? But like, for example, like when we did the Bournemouth pod last night, one of their top performers, Marcus Tavernier, for example, gets, scores some bangers every now and then, has some creativity, but fitness has been one of his biggest issues in recent time. And there is a bit of, doubt about whether or not he's going to be the main man moving forward in terms of creativity in their midfield. So he was one of the assets that, managers were drafting a lot this season because, let's say managers aren't that experienced with the game or not that tuned in. They'll just, pull up last season's points. Oh, okay, he scored that many goals. He scored that many assists. He's one of the top scoring assets. Let's pick him as one of the top assets. So for me, like, if I had to go an absolute stretch, maybe, and I know you mentioned him as one of the three that you were going to pick, but ESR potentially a trap in the sense that he has an injury history as well, and we talked about the fact about a new asset, even though he's played in the league before, but in a new team, a new setting, maybe you take that preseason form with a pinch of salt sort of thing. So that's what the idea is behind the trap asset.
And I guess you are right there, because all of those reasons are reasons not to sign Smith Rowe.
Yeah.
But as a fan, he's exciting, right? So you've got to buy it. And I would be tempted to say Castagna, but if Castagna plays, which he should, the Tete Adama thing, it's just because we've seen it in pre-season. If Castagna starts, he's great. Like, he will score a lot of points. And then I'm still not sold on Muniz. So, I'm still not sold on him. So I would never go near him early on. If you're trying to fill slots, no problem. But because he will play and he will get chances, but he's not. He's good, but he's not. It's not Harry Kane, is he? He's not Anthony Robinson. He's not Paulinho. He's not Mitrovic.
Yeah, it's true. I totally get it. All right, awesome. Anything else you want to mention before we move on to the final part of the podcast?
No, all's good.
No, okay, brilliant.
Oh, actually, yes.
All right,
who is the most drafted player? Then you said that it wasn't Robinson. Who was highest up?
In terms of like average draft position, like who's going first. So it's actually Muniz, then it's ESR, then it's Robertson, then it's Andreas, then it's Iwobi. Harry Wilson, Castagna, Sessegnon is actually going before Adama Traore. I don't think people know what they're doing.
Sessegnon, no. It's interesting that Robinson isn't number one because he's just so obvious. Yeah.
I think managers tend to, pick their forwards and their midfielders first in a draft before going defenders. I mean, it makes sense, right? Yeah. But you can't deny the production that you talked about from Robinson, what he's able to do defensively, going forward as well. He got an assist or two in preseason, if I'm not mistaken, as well, right? So. And they've adjusted the scoring this season as well, so that the first goal that you concede, you don't get a -2 for, which you typically do. So I agree with you. It's like, I don't see why not go Robinson as your first Fulham asset. Yeah, so maybe onto something, and it's a reason we're doing this podcast. So. All right, so we're going into our final segment. This is going into uncharted territory, I want to say. So, Paul, have you got any sort of draft experience at all?
I have done drafts. I've done drafts on FPL. But it's very much one of those things you do it with a group of friends, and then by the end, they've all sort of, fallen away from it, and people aren't changing their teams at all. So you end up with some players completely locked who are untouchable by people who aren't even looking at their teams, and it kind of spoils it. Commitment, activity, it's hard, but it's very, very vital when you're running a draft league. So I think we can answer a few questions given your exposure and your experience. So
when you used to draft, did you have like a typical drafting day tradition? Like you had to wear a Fulham kit, or your son sat next to you?
No, I didn't particularly. I'm a man with. I've got 3 young children, so it's much more like try and find. Oh, they always take much, much, much longer than you ever imagine they're going to take. But find a few hours
Yeah.
that you can actually lock yourself away and are not distracted by people, and pray that you don't come up as like number 14 in the draft, and you all of your
Yeah.
plans you've got your little spreadsheet, right, with who you're going to have and what round, and then it's all thrown to the wayside when you're looking at your 15th choice or whatever.
Yeah, so I guess you answered the next question. I was gonna ask you, do you use a spreadsheet, or are you more vibes manager?
No,
But you sound like you're very all about the data.
Yes, only because so if you end up doing it, I don't know how these are done, but if they're done online, if you don't have something set up and locked in, like, and something goes wrong with your tech, like, you're absolutely screwed, and you end up just with players you
Yeah.
don't want who have been ranked by someone
Yeah.
else. And like you say, people look for forwards first, but then you've got to think about, midfielders especially. There are players who, if they're forwards, there aren't that many, right? Because people often play with
Yeah.
one striker these days. So if you've got
Yeah.
lots of people in your league and there are only 20 teams to choose from, that becomes a priority. So yes, I'm definitely a spreadsheet kind of guy.
Okay, awesome. So I guess because I used to play the OFPL draft formats as well. I don't think you were allowed to trade draft picks or anything like that. So we can probably move on from there. I think it's the same thing with Fab as well. So basically what Fab is, it's just like an added layer of complexity in terms of when you're trying to put in waivers or claims. So you know how OFPL usually does like reverse order standings for your priority in terms of claiming? So Fab is basically like every manager is given $100. You're allowed to spend it increments of $1. So what it is that's the first layer in terms of whether or not you get the player that you want. So you could be lost in the priority order, but let's say you put $80 and the guy in first put 70, you're going to win the bid. If you bid the same amount, then it comes down to the priority order.
Right, okay.
So it tries to create a more complex playing field in a sense, right? So yeah, that's basically what it's about. I think there is one question that is very relevant. So when you're making waiver picks or you're picking up free agents, were you more focused on the form of the asset or the fixtures moving forward?
I'd say a bit of both. So the thing is, like, with form, the players who's they've gone, right? If a player is on super form, someone will have jumped on that bandwagon quicker than you, probably, right? So I am especially if you're chasing. If you're chasing, I'm a fixtures guy. I'm like look up who's playing Southampton. Load your team with whoever you've got from that. Because if you've been at games and you've been watching games, then sure, make that jump and jump on a player who you really think is going to break through and have an opportunity. Based on form, you've seen glimpses, but otherwise, it's got to be fixtures. And then I want players who start,
All right, awesome. So have you ever done trades in your draft league? And do you have any best or worst ones that stand out?
Not particularly. I think I'm more of a guy who will beg and beg and beg for a player who's doing really well, and then someone will say no matter what I'm offering them. So, especially if you're a Fulham fan, right? So, the years Mitrovic is doing really well, you're asking for him, because someone snapped him up before you, and they just won't give it to you. And it's spite, right? They're doing it because they don't want me to have him in the team. They don't actually care about holding on to that asset so much. And actually, you find the same, like maybe that sort of element doesn't necessarily come into it for all of you guys, but often there's someone in the league who just, even if they're not doing well, they don't want you to have that player because they know you really want them, and they're just using that against you. Yeah.
Yeah, all right, awesome. So before we move on from Fulham completely, I do want to kind of pick your brain in terms of, some buy low assets from Fulham or some sell high assets, just given the start of your season, right? Like you said, it looks pretty good on the fixture difficulty ticker, right? United away, Leicester at home, Ipswich away, West Ham at home, Newcastle at home, and Forest away. So, in terms of some buy low assets, who do you think pops up? So, like for me, for example, the first one that comes to mind is Adama. like let's say he doesn't start that United game, managers are probably dropping him to the waiver wire, then maybe you try to get him on a low, right?
Absolutely. And if that's the case, he would be the one. And I would be looking and I would be thinking, it depends. Whoever's played in that position, like, have they been amazing? Right? If we beat United and he doesn't start, fine. But if we play adequately and then he comes on with 20 minutes to go, because he will come on. He's fit, he's going to come on. And that's I guess that's the only thing which is against it, because every time he comes on, everyone sees him play and they go, oh, yes, Adama Traore, I'd like him. But he is the one. And then have a little look and see, because look at who's starting with Castagna and Tete, and actually the transfer market, if we sign people on that last day, he is looking for a holding midfield player.
Hey listeners, so unfortunately we had some technical difficulties and we had to cut the recording short. But Paul did have a bit of advice that he wanted to share, and I thought it was really, really good advice. So I just wanted to reiterate that he suggested that managers have a backup plan. So if you know the regular starter for any team is struggling for form, or there's an injury, just make sure you have a backup plan, right? And just grab the replacement. So for example, like if Castagna looks like he's out of form, grab Tete, right? But yeah, that's a wrap on the Inside Trax series. I just want to say a massive shout outs to all the Inside Trax reps. Ryan from Arsenal, John from Villa, Patrick from Bournemouth, Matt from Brentford, Luke from Brighton, Patrick from Chelsea, Nick from Palace, Matty from Everton, Robbie from Liverpool, Ben for City, Andrew for United, Kendall for Newcastle, Ross for Forest, Chuck for Spurs, Fletch for West Ham, Neil for Wolves, Connor for Ipswich, Kieran for Leicester, Jacob for Southampton, and finally Paul for Fulham. So yeah, just thank you so much for your time, your effort, and listeners, massive shout out to you as well for taking in every second and every minute, and the ongoing supports and the follows and the likes. We truly appreciate it. I mean, our intent is just to help as much of the community as possible, and if you can spread the word, share the content as well, it just helps us grow the brand. But like I said, that's it. We should be back with regular scheduled programming. Ryan should be back on the pod. He would be finishing up his drafts at the moment. I think it's just the Banter Home League that he's got left. But we should be back regular scheduled pod as well. I think it's Tuesday. We're probably gonna do one. We might do a waiver pod, but you might have to stay tuned. Join the Discord to get all the inside scoop, right? But until next time, peace.